the spacing. And so let's make this point. So it's very simple. Point text, spacing, keep going. And let's make this like, let's see, 45. Let's try something like that. Because I want, and so I'm looking at this now and I'm feeling like maybe this is too disjointed, so I'm gonna drag this up a little bit. Maybe we want this to be like 30 pixels. So that would be spacing times 2, something like that. Maybe this then should be a little bit bigger. Cool. More time in art class. The 9th step would be details. So there are all those little things that you may miss, or you're like, let me maybe step away, have a snack, watch an episode of something, and come back and see, what did I miss here? What's important?
Great British Bake Off,
Yep.
whatever you're feeling.
So I love that idea of adding in the underline. Perfect. Feeling pretty good. I just got a question of where I'm from.
Where you're from. Also, you're a rock star.
Oh, thanks. So I was originally born in New Jersey, and I grew up in a little farm town.
I grew up in a farm town.
Oh, yeah?
In Ohio.
Yes, well, all great designers come from farm towns, supposedly.
So they say.
And I have been in Israel for, sorry, I just read Israel, and I, Freudian slip. So I grew up in New Jersey, and then I actually did move to Israel for a year after high school, and I lived there, and it was awesome, and I learned Hebrew, and Israel is actually an amazing place. It has a ton of fabulous designers, and so I get very inspired when I see all of the design coming out of there. And I guess that actually goes for a lot of countries where they have different types of alphabets. So, if you see a design that's using a different alphabet and they're creating all these amazing textiles with these, these characters that you've never seen before, it's just so cool.
Yeah.
So after
Kinda
Israel,
like some of the logos we looked at yesterday.
yeah, exactly. That was actually a really good point. I was even noting how Arabic and Hebrew are very similar characters. So after that, I came back to the States, and I was in college in New York, and I've been in New York pretty much ever since. I had a little stint here in San Francisco, which was awesome. And you can learn a ton of things by being in a city that sort of specializes in something particular. Here, everyone is like somehow related to tech, and so you can really get your hands into some fun things here.
Yeah.
And now I'm through and through New York.
I think that lines up well with kind of the concept we've been running with, which is like traveling and getting out of your comfort zone is a good way to expand your mindset and push the boundaries on who you are and what you want to pursue.
Absolutely.
And ultimately can inform projects like this, which could potentially really help people if they were to be actualized.
Yes, yesterday we were talking about designing for good, and so it's really cool to, make something that people will use, and it's not just to buy another pair of shoes, but to change people's lives.
Totally.
Okay, cool. So I'm gonna keep doing the spacing. It becomes a little bit redundant. It's something that I would definitely suggest doing maybe in front of the TV or something like that. But what we're also doing now is not just figuring out spacing for the text, but spacing for like the size of the boxes that we're using. So I've actually just decided that this spacing, I like to have maybe like 120 pixels of padding when we're in a box that has text in it. And so I added that there, and then I did about 60 pixels in between the title and then the body copy. And then now I know I want it to be 120 pixels after this height. So we'll just add 120 there. So let's see, that will be 700.
Try to do it, I don't know if you want to, but you could try to do plus 120 and see what it does.
Oh, that's cool. Let's try that. Love that trick. Did everyone see that? Magic. I hope you did. So now that we know what this, now that we know that the box is actually matching what the content is so perfectly, and we can figure out the spacing from there, which is a really nice way to do it, I think.
I love that. What's
really cool in XD is that it automatically resizes these photos. So I'm going to just drag this to match that height, and you can see it kept the aspect ratio, which is like really great here. Yeah. So I didn't miss all that much.
I really like how you're letting the content shape your design rather than the other way around. And you touched on that earlier, but I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's so important to make sure that the content fits. I've worked on a ton of different experiences where they're like, oh, we'll just cut those last 3 sentences. And you're like, but people need to know what that information is.
Totally.
Okay, so from here, I want to establish how much padding we're gonna put in between each section. And I think because we're using 120 pixels within a component, I think I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger. So like, let's try maybe like 150. That looks pretty good.
Yeah.
So we'll do that in between each section.
Cool.
So I might just drag some of this all down so we can give ourselves a little bit more space and playing room. And then, cool, we'll drag this, give it 150 pixels. All right, it's close enough.
Yeah.
We got some like
It doesn't have to be
so.
totally perfect
Absolutely
right now.
not. Yeah. Okay, so from here, I'm gonna like start lining things up to the grid a little bit, and sometimes I have to make it a little more. I think actually, you know what we'll do here? We'll sort of like match it within the box itself. So we know like how big we want this to be, and so I'm just gonna line this up before I drag the background color, and so we'll just keep that sort of smack in the middle.
Cool. Sounds good. And I just want to give you a quick time check.
Yes,
so we're going to do
do.
design feedback in 12 minutes. We're going to look at daily creative challenge designs. And then after that, we'll be able to wrap up the stream.
Awesome.
So at some point, if you want to get into showing them some of the case study work, we'll have to keep that in
totally.
mind too.
Okay, you got it. Thanks for the heads up. As you can see, it takes a little more time than we want to build a website, but I think we're learning some really important components here.
No, this is great. Just wanted to give you a time check
Yeah.
for where you're at with your work.
Cool. So we're just gonna keep updating this stuff, and I think what we'll do here. So, you know, we can do the same process here of you know, adding 120 pixels at the top, but I actually kind of like the idea of testing if we want to keep this content all centered or if we want it to like line up to the top. So what I'm gonna do first is our handy little trick with point text. We'll sort of line everything up within itself. Give this about 60 pixels. And then here we have, let's do 30 as well here. Okay, cool. So this whole unit now is cohesive. And so we can drag it to the top and see what that looks like, or maybe we want to drag it to the center and see what that looks like.
Cool.
So you have a couple little options. I think that looks pretty good.
I like that
Cool.
too.
All right, so let's just keep rolling in here. We need 150 pixels here. Let's line these up to the grid. Cool, looks pretty good. And all right, so we'll do our little pixel trick.
I love that trick.
Yeah, I think it's really nice.
I've tried
and then
to
it's
line
just,
up text boxes without that, and it's a nightmare.
yeah, and it's like you never really know if you've got it in the right spot exactly. I'm gonna line that up to there. That looks pretty good. This one we know is like already sorted in terms of its spacing, as I sort of grabbed it as a component, so we don't have to do all that much here. We'll just sort of line it up with the box, so we know that everything is like in the right place. So let's just center this, and then again we'll add 120 pixels from the top. We'll just make this, let's give ourselves 60 pixels, drag this. I love this addition trick. Just keep adding that. Yeah.
Calculator.
And so
I
now
don't think
we
it does
know.
like square root or like logarithm.
I hope
but-
not. That would be far too much. And then we'll just drag these so it's covering the whole thing. Okay, cool. So that module feels pretty good. And I would say, you know, in the interest of time, we'll just sort of pause on like these other sections because we know that they'll follow the same sort of principles here.
Right.
I think we can just do it maybe quickly on this one. We just have to change the color here.
We have some viewers discovering emojis in chat.
Excellent.
We sort of quietly rolled those out. I think
very
last
nice.
week. We didn't always have emojis. But we do have them now. Just please don't spam us with them.
Let's see your favorite one. Or which one best
Do you have a
represents
favorite?
us. A favorite emoji?
Favorite emoji?
I have a lot.
Yeah,
They
you
are
do.
all for different ones. You can't ask the
We
designer that question.
We should pull out our phones and see what our
Yeah, I
most used
know.
ones are. It's a fun
Let
game.
us know what your most used one is.
I like
Love to hear
the
that.
dancer girl. The Yas girl.
The Yas girl. Who doesn't love the Yas girl?
That one's really good.
I use the spa one a lot.
Oh yeah, nice.
With the girl with bubbles in her hair.
Just chilling.
Yep. Okay, that looks pretty good. Center that. And
Greg's favorite emoji is the cool guy. Cool guy with glasses.
yep.
Val likes the creepy eyes. You would.
Okay, so we're getting pretty close. Let's just give this one last go. 20. So we'll want to drag this a little bit bigger, drag that a little bit bigger. Cool. Okay.
Nice.
And lastly, we have this little section. So
Lindsay's favorite's the, I don't know, the shrug.
never knew what that one exactly meant.
It's kind of like a shrug, right?
Yeah.
Let us know,
Just like,
Lindsay.
Okay, we'll center that. How many pixels did it say? We're pretty close. 120. Awesome.
Val's a really big Star Wars fan. Like, probably a bigger Star Wars fan than I've ever met. She's obsessed with Kylo Ren.
So I have a fact that might kick some people off this chat, but I've never seen a Star Wars movie in full. I've seen lots of bits and pieces of them.
Val's heart is just silently
I know.
breaking
I'm
in
so
half
sorry.
right now.
This is a point of contention in my relationship too. So if you have a movie, well, like which series I should start with? You know, who's your favorite?
Let Val answer that one.
Yes, please do.
She's diehard.
Okay, cool. We're almost there. I love this plus tool. It's so fabulous.
Anna Brackett says, "Me too, Stephanie."
Thanks.
You're not alone.
Here to say this tough stuff.
Yeah. Confession time.
Yes. Sometimes you gotta just be honest. Okay, so I noticed that we didn't update the colors there, so I'm just doing it quickly now. And then I think we can just go back and do the spacing really quickly on all of these different sections. And that should go really fast because we have already established that we want 150 pixels in between each one. So maybe I spoke too soon.
Yeah, sometimes they snap into place and sometimes they
Yeah,
don't.
you just never know.
Which is kind of strange.
Okay, so that's close. And then this one.
Actually, a lot of people haven't seen it in chat. Greg, Catherine never started it.
All
Although
right.
Val says what's worse, the worst thing you can do is starting watching it and then quitting it.
Yeah, I could totally understand that. We'll have to maybe have like a group watching and then I'll come back and share our opinions.
I think you should check out Empire Strikes Back.
Okay, cool.
Her recommendation was Empire Strikes Back or Rogue One.
Well, I have a long flight back to New York, so maybe I'll pop that on the red eye.
Then
Oh,
you can
look at
tweet out
that.
what
We
you
got
thought
like
of
a
it.
near perfect spacing, so I'm pretty happy with that.
Nice.
Cool. All right, so we figured out our spacing for the most part. We'll move on to the next step. We have about 5 minutes left, so I'm just going to show you a couple of quick little fun tricks.
Cool.
And we'll do a little save. And I think here I'm now finally going to turn off the grid now that we have like all of our spacing and whatnot. I actually just unlocked it, but we'll hide it. Cool. This is looking really nice. I'm feeling pretty good about it. I hope everyone else likes it too.
I'm loving it.
Cool.
Super
So
clean.
let's try let's see. Tell us in the chat if you'd like to see some interaction on the navigation, changing the language, or filling out a form field. So let me know which one of those three is will be the most exciting for you to see, and we can if you want to, which one you want to see. Let's
Sounds
see.
good. Let us know. And in the meantime, you have little less than 4 minutes to share designs on the current challenge channel in the XD Discord. If you want to go to the XD Discord, it's just bit.ly/X, D, and then lowercase Discord. There you go. So if you want to join, go to this link, join up, and you can share your daily creative challenge designs for us to review. We'll do that in 3 minutes.
Awesome. Interaction on the nav. Navigation. I see a lot of navigations. Okay, so we're going to start there. I think that's great. Cool. So this navigation was hidden for a reason. We wanted it to go to other parts of the State Department website that have nothing to do with visas, and so we decided we were going to hide it. And then from here, we decided it was going to be like a drop down. Cool. So I actually watched a couple of like fun tutorials, in my experience of learning XD, and so I learned how you can do some of these like cool little drop down features in the prototyping.
I wonder if you watched a video from Howard.
I definitely watched some videos from Howard.
Howard's sitting in the green room right now.
I saw him earlier. Okay, so let's do this as nav. I think this is now number 9. And
hi, Howard.
Hey, Howard. Okay, so I actually created a navigation bar already, and we have that right here called Hover Nav that I'm going to drop in. And let me just space it properly. So we can just do a quick align like that. Cool. Okay, so as you can see, this has a couple of things. It brings us to, this should say passports. A couple of the other services that the State Department offers. And so, again, those are things that people on this site might not need. So those would be passports, international travel. I've actually decided that we were going to separate the experience out of immigrant to non-immigrant visas, and then adopting a child. So that would be a couple of the other services. So if we were to drop this down, we'll place it at the top, and then what we'll actually need to do is create another page. And this is going to be nav, I'm going to call that nav 2. And so this is where it will actually be visible.
Right.
Here, the first thing we need to do is hide it. So this, we know it's on this artboard, but we don't need it to be visible. Now we have it visible here. So what is important now is to show how all of the text and the assets like sort of move down the page as the navigation drops down. So the first thing I'm going to do is just grab this, and as we saw earlier with shapes and images, it will keep the aspect ratio as it was. So this would drop down. And then we have all of this information that would also need to drop down. So I'm just going to simply line it up with that navigation. And if you remember, we had, I think, 75 pixels of padding from the top of the navigation. Cool. So I'm just going to give it the same padding as before. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cool.
Nice.
That's great. I think I'm wondering, like, maybe this one doesn't need to move, so that might be a static element to it. So let's bring this back up 75 pixels. And, we're getting into a little bit of, like, a close territory here, but I think for now that's probably fine. So let's save, and I think now we can just do, like, a very basic prototype. So if we highlight our little drop down here, we're going to drag it into this screen. So now that will lead here. And let's go into our interaction panel where it shows us like how it would work. So I'm just gonna keep it at auto animate. Let's just try this. Let's see what it looks like. So if this were to drop down, you can see that the whole thing drops down. So we could play with it a little bit more, but this is generally how you could create some of that interaction.
I think if you want it to, like, when you hit the arrow, if you want it to, like, drop down visually too, the arrow, that whole thing, instead of hiding it, if you take that bar on the original screen and just bring it right up barely to the edge of the artboard, it'll kind of pop down.
That's a great point. Yep. Yeah. A couple different ways to do this.
That could be a cool way to approach that drop down.
So that's just one of the interaction features that I think we would embed into this experience. But
cool. Thanks for showing us that. So we'll get back into this right after we do some reviews in Discord. So we've had some folks sharing designs, and I have it pulled up. I think there's only really 2 to review. Cool. This is the first day of the challenge, and it was live right before us. So I'd imagine a lot of people are still working on their designs.
And some people got it done. That's impressive.
Yeah. And I think that actually some of them are older designs. So I don't know if we have any ones for today's challenge, but I just did want to mention quickly. If you want, you can check out the Daily Creative Challenge here. You just go to this URL. It's behance.net/challenge/XD. If you want daily notifications, you just click this blue button. and then some basic steps. But this is today's challenge. You can watch the replay here and then get the starter file here. So this is what we're reviewing right now, is the Daily Creative Challenge. And people are sharing work in Discord. So Discord's a cool platform where people communicate. It's 24/7. It lives beyond the live stream, and it's a place to get feedback and improve as designers.
So
Here
great.
we are. So I wanted to just take a little scroll up. This is from, actually, this is a project from our last Daily Creative Challenge. Somebody was working on an auto navigation screen.
Awesome.
So I thought maybe we could take a peek at this. There's a video.
Yeah,
and we
so
could give
great.
a little
Let's
bit of
see it.
feedback.
This
Can
is
we do
great.
it? There it goes.
Oh, I love that the steps like disappear after they're complete.
There's also a really tiny
cool.
detail where the arrow changes directions,
Yeah, I see that. That's really nice.
which requires them to just rotate it in between transitions, but it makes it look a lot more realistic.
Super cool. That's
Yeah.
great. Is it just the video and that?
Yeah, it's just
So
this
awesome.
map interaction.
I can't
for
believe
Smart Car Nav.
that looks really nice. So I love a couple of things. If you tuned in yesterday, we were talking about presenting the assets that we created. And so I love that this is actually in situ. You don't even have to describe what it is. I automatically know that we're looking at a navigation in a car. And so that's great. It just gives it also a really nice contrast. Like it sort of establishes to me why that green exists. We were talking about green being like a go color. And when you see it against the other pieces of the car and the navigation, it really pops. And so I love that there's some context for this.
Cool.
The video is so awesome. I'm a huge, obviously, proponent of showing some of the interaction with a video, which we'll do in a couple of minutes again on this page. And I love, like I said, that the different steps that you've already created disappear as you finished. I love that,
Nice.
like you said, the arrow changes direction. And yeah, I mean, I really think that this looks great.
Cool.
So I guess I would say with this piece, it looks like, I mean, I really have like nothing bad to say about it.
Cool,
I think it
that's
looks
fine.
really great. Yeah,
I
keep
think
making more.
One of the other things I was thinking was maybe that, depending on the screen, like quality, this lighter green with white, like even on my desktop, it looks, or my laptop, it looks a little different than it does on the screen. It could get a little bit lost in terms of contrast.
That accessibility factor.
But other than that, I think it looks really nice.
Yeah, I think maybe even another thing you could add in there is how you could zoom into the map. So sometimes a map, as you get closer to your destination, it sort of zooms into a closer view of the map. And so that might be a cool element that you can add in as like a second screen or another screen.
Yeah.
And I think that's a feature that the auto transition would like work really well on, really nicely on.
That's great. Great tip. Thanks for sharing, Susanna. Looks really
Yeah,
nice.
keep making stuff.
And we'll try to review one more. So this is not a daily creative challenge. I think it's just a design shared by Dream.
Looks great though.
So let's see if we have one concept for a chatbot app called Chad. All right, we'll review Chad.
Let's see it.
So this is a chatbot. I think it's just these screens. Cool.
Cool. So love the logo. Love the name.
I love the name, yeah.
Yeah.
Chad the chatbot.
So who posted this one?
So this was shared in Discord by Ugnius, RG.
Cool.
I guess that's how I would
Cool name.
pronounce that. Yeah.
So, all right, let's take a look back at it. So I love the colors, and I really like the contrasting in the green on the third panel. I would say like bring that maybe even into the second or even into the logo panel. I think it's just like a really great color combination that you found. And I love that there's like two options for messages. So I like that it's called messages and groups actually.
Yeah.
I think that's like a nice understood kind of behavior for a chatbot. So that's really cool. So a really important thing I would say globally is to do spell check when you're presenting pieces. I know these are daily challenges, but I think this has less to do with a daily challenge and more to do with like everything on your work. When you're so focused on all these little details, especially the design details, the text sometimes gets becomes secondary.
Yeah.
And so, make sure that you just like throw everything into a Word doc when you're creating stuff, and then it will tell you like what is spelled wrong, or might just highlight a couple of things. And so that part is always just like really important little nitpick things.
Yeah, and I think this, from our conversation yesterday on our reviews, I think some context could be really nice.
Yeah, for
in the
sure. I think
project.
that's another. You could create more screens of this. You don't even have to build more screens of the prototype, but just show it in a couple of different ways, because it is such a cool interaction and feature. And so if you show it with someone holding it like on a phone, or like maybe if it's part of another experience, that could be really cool too.
Cool. The only other thing I was thinking was these kind of look like buttons to me. They're like feature highlights. So I think this is like the main call to action is to sign up, right?
Yeah, for sure. You definitely created a great hierarchy here of like what I should start with. But I think, using shadows and the shape of some buttons is something that maybe you could explore a little bit more to see if if it will create more distinction between those two things.
Cool.
It looks like we have one other person that wanted something.
Let's see. So we don't have any daily creative challenges shared for today, but I do want to remind everyone what
Julia
it was.
just added something in the
Oh,
chat.
can you read my XD? Sure, we can look at that, Julia. But I do want to highlight real quickly what today's challenge is. It's to create a mobile experience for controlling wireless speakers and RGB lights.
Cool.
So it's like if you have a smart setup for your desktop computer, what would that interface look like? So Peter did a video. We're about to do video inception real quick. That's now a replay. You can click on this and watch what Peter did earlier, follow along, and then create something. Once you have something that you'd like to share for feedback, jump into this channel, current challenge, into the feedback section, and you can share it for feedback. So Julia shared something in past challenge. We'll take a look at it real quick.
Cool. Ooh, Midway
Nice.
Maker.
So this
Love the
one
logo.
is from June, and I think this was Andrea Hawk's challenge. So this is what we have. So I think this design home screen for a music creation app, turn your buttons and elements into components as you design.
Cool.
So this is what Julia came up with.
Looks really good. So I love the logo. I love that you've created a whole screen that it's not just the experience that you built, but you've actually presented it as like an entire experience. You've laid out what the information is, what the name is, what it actually was. So it was a daily challenge. That you have some of the Adobe XD stuff in the top. It feels like a whole cohesive unit, which is really nice.
Totally.
I think again, like we can just look at hierarchy. That's always like a really important thing to do as a step in design. So, create what you're making and then take a step away, maybe have take a couple hours, maybe work on something else, look at a couple other things, and then come back to it and say, when I look at this for the first time in a couple of hours, what's the first thing I see? So the first thing I saw was a logo, and while it's an awesome logo, I'm not sure that was necessarily the focus that you wanted to make. And so the mock-up is amazing. And so like I would, try to highlight that even more. And maybe it doesn't have to be bigger, but a way you can do that is by making other components smaller. So I would maybe just play around with what you have on the left-hand side to just better highlight the amazing mock-up that you've already done.
Cool. I think that's a great tip.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing, Julia. It's really cool, and I'm glad that you're working on a challenge that's already aired. If you didn't know,
Keep making them.
you can find
Why not?
all of them at the bottom of the page, Explore Past Challenges. So you can check them out. As we add more, there'll be an option to select and see even more than these two.
Yeah.
So I think that's all we got to review today. Thanks everyone for sharing, and keep participating in Daily Challenge. And let's get back into your work.
Awesome. Cool.
Maybe show them a little bit about case studies and how to wrap it up.
Yeah, totally. So I actually had a couple of things that I already populated down here, just given that we want to talk about how to actually add these to our portfolios. So there's 3 things that I want to talk about in the next 20 minutes. When we're building the case study, you can show the entire experience just as we've built it up here. We could just export this piece and upload that to our Behance page, and that's totally awesome and great, and it showcases great work, and there's really nothing wrong with that. But there's a couple of extra fun little things we can do to just plus it up and make sure that our viewers are focusing on the things that we want them to focus on. And so for me, there are 3 things that really stood out about this. Of course, we would want to give a little context of, you know, why we did this project, maybe what it looked like before, and what some of the components were that we gravitated towards. And so, you know, I highlighted 3 visual things that we would want to build out in particular. Cool. So the first thing is the before and after. So what I've very quickly done is just taken a screenshot of the old site, and then the second stage would be the second site. So I'm gonna drop in what we've just built. So to do that, I'm gonna zoom all the way back up here.
Nice.
And I'm going to export this piece, this last screen, not the one with the drop down. I think we can just keep this one. So let's just go to export, selected, and we'll drop it into our place here. So let's do case study assets and new. We'll export it there. We'll replace it because that's the one we just built today. And we'll go back to this panel and drop it in. So I'm going to go into my Finder and go right into new. Cool. So it drops it right in the middle, and so you just have to sort of scroll it down to line it up how you want it to be. And then we go back into the prototyping section, and I've already added in what I want to actually happen, the interaction component. And so I've put it on a timer. So this is a really good trick when you want to make a screen recording of the interaction, but you don't want the cursor to be in the window. And so if you put it on a timer, you can press record and it will automatically show what would happen when you transition from one screen to the next without showing the browser. I did a dissolve and I did an ease in, ease out. So we're really gonna see how it sort of like melts from the old experience into the new experience.
Yes.
So let's just take a quick look at what that looks like. So let me play it again because it opened it up really low, but it goes from there to there. So it's like the same site, just totally different. Yeah. And so this is like a nice little piece. You might want to set the timer like a little bit, you know, longer, so it gives you some time to record the video. So I'm gonna press play, I'll press record.
Oh, for some reason it saved only as 1 second still.
Yeah, so I didn't quite get it in time, so we'll just cancel that out. Let's
you adjust that timer one more time.
Make sure, let's add 2 seconds. Cool. And we'll press play, hit record. And that's it.
Cool.
Press escape and we have that. So let's do before, after video 1.
Nice.
And let's take a quick peek. Let's see how that looks. So it's a little fast. You could play with the timing, but that's a quick way to just show like one component of this case study is the before and after.
Cool.
The second thing I want to show is, well, we didn't get to build this out, but I already have it built. So I can show you how you might want to highlight a specific section on the site and pull it out of the experience and just sort of use it as its own form, own feature. So let's say we're doing the form field. I put it on an artboard and I build out the rest of the experience. And so now we can actually see what that looks like. So let's press play. And with this one, I actually want to keep the cursor in there because I want to show how you would interact with this. So if I were to click here and type in, let's say Ethiopia, I can have that populate on. Then if I go into the purpose of my visit, it has this nice little drop down. Let's say I click tourism and family visit as my option, and then I press this and it actually slides out to reveal what kind of visa I would want. And then we can click this, that would drive us to a secondary page. I made the button.
Transparent already. Or whatever, not fill.
Yes, I guess I was intuitive in that. So this is, you know, a lot of interactive components that if we were to just put a screenshot or a JPEG of what we just built out on the Behance, it would look great, but we wouldn't be able to showcase all this little piece. So, and again, we don't want someone to have to scroll down through the whole thing. So this just becomes a little video that can be another thing that we add to our Behance page.
Cool.
So that's one piece.
Nice.
The last thing I want to do, and this is actually the reason why we built the experience as we did, artboard by artboard, is I like to show the build so we can go from stage to stage. So I'm going to press play and show you what this interaction looks like. And what I've done here is created another artboard that just shows like each process. So we start with a grid system, and then we went into our grid boxes, content, textiles, elements, photography, etc. And this I'll be posting on my Behance page. So if you liked the design process that we just went through the last 2 days, then I think we can, you can always use this little module as a cheat sheet to remember like what those little stages are that we've done.
It also shows your design thinking, right?
Exactly. And like
awesome.
I said yesterday in portfolio reviews, it's not just about what you make, but how you think. And so it's really important that, you create these elements of whatever experience you're showcasing to show your thinking and what your process is or can be. So right now it's just a gray box, but let's just show if we were to actually have it on a timer, so we'll sort of just cycle through. So what we want to do now is, we have all 8 of these steps, and so I'm going to go back to the top here and export each of these artboards. So we'll go up to 8, which was our spacing. So that's when we sort of finish the full UI experience before we move into interaction. I'm gonna highlight each one of these. Try it again.
You got this. The power of the pen.
It's like 1 pixel away from clicking the wrong thing. Cool, I think that's it. Okay,
Nice.
So all 8 of these, I grabbed those. I could probably export it as a batch, but I just like to be very selective. And we'll do export selected. We're gonna export them for design. So I'm gonna keep them, you could really choose PNG or JPEG, it doesn't really matter. We're not really working on any particular file size here, so it's fine. Let's make a new folder within the case study assets called build.
Cool.
And I'm just going to export them here.
Hi Darbaz, thanks for joining us. Good to see you.
Hey.
We're just about to wrap up the project and show you how to export some artboards and create a nice presentation element for your Behance.
There is an ask for my Behance page. So my Behance page, we should be able to throw the link up in the chat.
Throw it in there.
So I'll use another analogy, since if you've been tuning in at all, I like analogies. But I'll definitely be populating my Behance page a little bit more, I've been very busy with client work the last few years, which is great. And someone gave me an analogy once. They said, if you're going to get your hair cut, you should never go to the person who has the best hairstyle, because you should go to actually the person with the worst hairstyle, and it's because that's the person who's working on everyone else's hair. So my page is a little naked, but it's just because I've been working on everyone else's experiences. And so when I get some me time, we'll definitely be updating that. But please follow me. Then Val just added my website, so you can see a couple extra things on there. And I'd love to, have you join me on Behance, and then we'll keep adding things as we go.
Okay, I've got your link in there now.
Awesome. Okay, so last step is this build. So I'm going to go back into design mode, and now I'm going to go into that folder we just created with all of the exported pieces. So let's go into Visa site, case study assets, that build. Cool. So we have each of the steps here, and we're going to show the build. I'm so excited for this part.